Welcome to Oldland Windmill. There's been a windmill here near Kemah in West Sussex for over 300 years, but like most mills, it was abandoned early last century. Starting over 40 years ago, a group of volunteers restored this mill to a working state. So now, in 2024, maintaining a windmill like this so it's able to produce flour isn't without its challenges. So if it wasn't for the volunteers, whether in the milling, maintenance or any other team, this just would not be possible. So let's hear from some of those volunteers.
I got involved with this windmill because I live locally, and this is a footpath, and we walk up here quite regularly and admire the mill, and I think it's wonderful. And actually now I've got the opportunity to be involved with it. I think it's a really good thing to do, something that I admire and that I can actually contribute towards. So that's why I got involved. Plus I was hooked in by another volunteer who was quite persuasive. I've been volunteering since about last May, so nearly a year. But prior to that I had been a summer volunteer when they've been painting at the mill. Recently I have been asked if I wanted to be involved with the milling. Specifically on milling days, we need to wind the mill so that it's pointing in the correct direction. We need to judge the wind as well to set the shutters appropriately. Recently we've had a programme of replacing the how the shutters are actually held on to the sweeps, and in doing so it was discovered that something called the eccentric pulley was not sound. So this morning we've been looking at fitting a new piece. So I've been up in the cherry picker with Fred because you need two pairs of hands to do what we were doing, which was to ensure that the new piece of the eccentric pulley mechanism is actually the right shape and the right size. The holes are drilled in the right place for it to fit correctly. Okay. Coming up to the mill, I found that the tasks that I'm doing are varied and many. There's nothing specific that I am in charge of, because I have the opportunity to do all sorts of things that I'd never even thought that I would be able to do. I have been helping with using the pillar drill. I mean, I've never touched one in my life before. I've used the bandsaw, things that frighten me, frankly, but you know, it's under supervision. People are there to show you what to do and to help you do them and to learn more. And that's the whole point of coming up here, is to learn more and to be involved. And I've really enjoyed it. It's a very friendly place to come to as well. Yeah, couldn't ask for more, really and truly. Good chat, good banter, lovely to be involved.
I was specifically asked to join to help with the fundraising side, because Oldland had applied for a government grant in the late 1990s and they were unsuccessful. But they had appreciated by around the year 2000 just how expensive it was going to be to complete the restoration. Therefore, money was an important issue to consider. My experience from the academic world was applying for grants occasionally and being reasonably successful, so I felt I had a skill I could offer them, and that was welcomed, and so I came specifically in 2003 to basically see if we could get a government grant to help cover the costs of constructing replacement sweeps, which were clearly one of the key requirements of restoring the mill. My background at the University of Brighton, I entered the educational world having worked in industry, GEC, Marine and Nuclear Division, as a structural design engineer. I actually changed horses somewhat mid-career because I became fascinated with engineering design in the broadest sense, and the philosophical side of it, if you want to use that grand word. And I'd become interested in teaching, and I took the opportunity to become a lecturer initially in engineering design, and I introduced engineering design as a subject into mechanical engineering courses at the University of Brighton. It's that interest in design which really drove me through my academic career, by the end of which I had become the Dean of Faculty of Science and Engineering at the University of Brighton. So clearly once I got to that role I'd lost the day-to-day lecturing, which I rather missed, but that's another story. But at least I did have some experience of management, if you like, in those days of the order of perhaps 100 staff in the faculty. It was not foreign to me to try and lead a group of people on any sort of project, including something like Oldland Mill. That said, I want to make it quite clear I didn't come in and immediately adopt the most senior position. Far from it. I came in with a lot to learn because I did not claim to be an expert in historic buildings, for example. I understood mechanical structures, but I didn't necessarily understand traditional historic wooden buildings. Clearly one doesn't use much wood in modern nuclear power stations, which was my structural experience. And when I came in, of course, the leader was John Annett, the man who really is primarily responsible for the mill reaching the stage it has now. And I worked very much as John's second, if you like, second in command, really working with him and for him and learning from him. Very important to appreciate what we have to learn at any stage in our lives.
It started when I was about 5 years old. I went to West Watchington Windmill when I was 5, and I collected a stamp book. And this was basically where you'd go around to all the different windmills and you get a stamp and you'd get something called a Dusty Miller's badge at the end. It was actually called a Dusty Miller's passport, believe it or not. So I'd done that, and when I was about by the age of 10, I'd already collected well over 20 stamps from just different mills. And I was quite drawn to ones which were working. You know, just going to a windmill and just seeing it actually working in the flesh, you just think it's just amazing. It's just amazing to see. And yeah, just being that sort of child, just standing, just watching it turn, and just thinking, oh, one day I'd love to be involved in something like that. Of course, children, you know, they lose interest in things, but it was just something for me that always sort of stuck. And as I got a bit older, I started to become involved, and then yeah, it just kind of went from strength to strength, really. I'm 20 now and I'm still really interested in windmills. For a number of years now, I've been on the milling team at Oldland, and we produce about 2.5 tons of flour a year to be sold at local outlets, and all the money from that goes back into the mill fund, and that's what's keeping it up and running for everybody to see, along with the open days and the fetes and a dedicated group of volunteers.
I visited Oldland Mill as a visitor on one of the open afternoons around about 2014. I'd been to the mill a few times before but taken little interest. This time I took a bit more interest, mainly because of my engineering background, and I was given a very detailed explanation of how it worked by one of the volunteers called Mick Fitter, who suggested perhaps I should come along as a volunteer to see if I could do anything useful at the mill in my retirement. So that's how it started. My current role at the mill is lead miller. That means I'm basically in charge of all the milling operations to produce our flour, for which we sell to the public. Part of that role is to select the wheat we buy, visit the farms to look at the quality, test it, and then arrange the purchase, collection and delivery to the mill. After which we then, within the milling team, run the grain through our winnower to make sure we remove all the bits that we don't want in the milling process. And after that we then bring the grain into the mill to store on the bin floor, where it stays safely wrapped up and protected from the environment until we're ready to use it for milling. I enjoy many things coming to the mill. The people, they're a friendly bunch, we have a good bit of banter, but we get on with the job of keeping the mill in the condition it needs to be kept in for our future generations to enjoy. So that's my main enjoyment, but of course the milling is important. I enjoy running the mill. It's a big machine and there's a lot of responsibility in running it. But the satisfaction in the end is producing the flour, seeing it packed up and sold to make the mill a bit of money to help keep it maintained.
And it's those involved with volunteering that keep our mills working. So let's get involved.
Let's get involved.